Over the past several weeks, a series of developments has placed Trinidad and Tobago, the United States, and the wider region under an intense spotlight, expanding U.S. military activity in Caribbean waters and sharp political warnings at home about the future of the region. The revocation of a U.S. visa from a prominent NGO official and the fight for free speech on social media have now highlighted the lengths the TNT government is willing to go to partner with the United States on regional security. Will the United States continue expanding its naval and air operations in the Caribbean? Will Trinidad and Tobago rely even more heavily on foreign military intelligence and resources as its internal security crisis deepens? That appears likely. The Caribbean has long prided itself on being a zone of peace, a region defined by dialogue, law, and sovereignty. As foreign militaries expand their reach and governments tighten their grip on information, the region now faces a defining test of whether it can defend both its security and its freedoms at the same time. The recent controversy started when the United States revoked the visa of Gary Aboud, the corporate secretary of the long-standing Trinidad and Tobago environmental and civil rights group, Fishermen and Friends of the Sea. For decades, the organization has acted as a watchdog for coastal communities, fisherfolk, marine sustainability, and environmental justice. But in recent months, Aboud had become one of the most vocal critics of the expanding U.S. military presence in the southern Caribbean, particularly the series of maritime strikes targeting vessels accused of drug trafficking near Venezuelan waters. The U.S. Embassy cited additional information as the reason for the visa cancellation, saying it rendered him inadmissible under immigration law, but no specific allegations were publicly disclosed. To Aboud and many in civil society, the message was unmistakable. He described the move as political punishment and a signal that dissent against foreign military operations may now carry personal consequences. Human rights advocates quickly echoed that concern, warning that visa cancellations tied to political speech create a chilling effect for the region's entire advocacy community. The Trinidad and Tobago government formally distanced itself from the decision, stating that visa policy rests solely with Washington and that it does not interfere in U.S. immigration matters. Still, critics argue that the silence surrounding the revocation has done little to ease fears. For many observers, the timing is impossible to ignore. A civil society critic of foreign military power loses his U.S. travel privileges just as warships, surveillance aircraft, and submarines increase their presence in the very waters he has been warning about. At the center of the tension is the rapid expansion of U.S. military operations in the southern Caribbean to waters near Venezuela and Trinidad and Tobago. The official justification is narcotics interdiction and regional security. The U.S. says it is targeting networks accused of trafficking drugs, weapons, and cash through Caribbean shipping routes. U.S. forces have carried out multiple kinetic strikes on small vessels, claiming links to drug and terror networks. These operations have resulted in nearly 100 fatalities and have sent shockwaves through maritime communities. Fishermen now report fear of venturing offshore, and small traders describe disrupted routes. Coastal communities are worrying about misidentification and mistaken targeting. Supporters of the military operation argue it is finally confronting long ignored criminal supply chains that feed violence, addiction, and arms trafficking across the Caribbean basin. Government officials in Trinidad and Tobago have recently stated that the partnership enhances national security at a time when the country is battling a surge in gang related violence and illicit firearms. Critics counter that militarization without judicial oversight creates new dangers where the sea becomes a battlefield instead of a lawful transit zone governed by international maritime norms. Against this backdrop, a senior U.S. military official recently met face to face with Prime Minister Kamala Prasad Bisesar, describing the discussions as excellent and reaffirming TNT's cooperation on regional security, intelligence sharing, and law enforcement coordination. The meeting signaled that despite public unease, the strategic partnership between Trinidad and Tobago and the United States remains deeply entrenched. Both sides emphasized their commitment to counter narcotics operations, maritime surveillance, port security, and border intelligence. For the government, these talks represent stability and international support. For critics, the optics raise uncomfortable questions. How much say do Caribbean nations truly have when superpowers deploy advanced military hardware in their waters? Former Prime Minister Stuart Young has issued a stark warning that the country is entering dangerous times, citing a climate of fear, growing intolerance of dissent, and the intersection of state power with external military influence. He warned that when national security becomes the dominant lens through which all public life is viewed, democratic safeguards begin to quietly erode. His comments come as public trust in institutions remains strained. Crime dominates headlines, and many citizens feel caught between fear of violence and fear of authoritarian drift. In an age where traditional media alone no longer controls public discourse, Trinidad and Tobago's opposition leader, Penelope Beckles-Robinson, warned that government discussion around cracking down on social media misinformation could easily morph into an assault on free expression. She warned that independent bloggers, citizen journalists, and online commentators have become essential tools for accountability. Any move to regulate or criminalize online criticism, she said, risk pushing dissent underground and fostering greater mistrust. Her warning was blunt. When governments start labeling uncomfortable speech as dangerous or destabilizing, the line between security and censorship disappears quickly. For digital activists, the visa revocation of a prominent NGO official and discussion of social media controls felt like part of the same pattern, the tightening of space for public challenges to official narratives, both domestic and foreign. The path ahead remains uncertain. We will continue to follow this developing story closely. At CaribbeanToday.com, we cover your world.